Welcome everyone to our webinar, Telehealth and the Digital Marketing Transformation. Just want to say thank you for joining us today. It should be an engaging and educational discussion, and I'm going to give, like I said, well, it's 2:02 now, so we can begin. So the panel for today consists of myself, Linnea Hornmuller. I'm going to host today, and joining the panel is Simon Lorenz from Klara and Shashi Mohan from Local Management. Dr. Nawabi from Walking Urgent Care was unfortunately unable to join today due to a medical emergency. And I know a lot of the attendees today are healthcare providers. I'm sure you understand. So anyways, that said, I'm gonna let everyone give a quick short bio and intro. I'm gonna kick it off. So again, I'm Linnea, the host today, and I'm the director of marketing at Local Management. I have a background in marketing and advertising, but also in SaaS, so technology, board governance, and the healthcare space. I'll let Shashi cover local management and how we help our clients get found online. But first, Simon, can you give us a brief background on yourself and on Klara?
Sure. First of all, thanks for inviting me to this webinar. Very excited to be talking to you guys today. So my name is Simon. I'm one of the co-founders and co-CEO of Klara. Klara is an end-to-end or the end-to-end patient communication platform. So we enable medical teams to streamline, digitize, and automate communication along the entire patient journey. So yeah, my background is I come from healthcare. I worked in healthcare. I come from a family full of healthcare professionals. So from my great-grandfather to my grandfather, father, mother, uncles, aunts, sisters, cousins, all were doctors. I wrote my PhD thesis exactly about the topic how to transform providers into a more cost-efficient and revenue-optimized way. And then built Klara after that. So I'm very excited to be talking to you today.
Great, thank you so much, Simon. Shashi?
Hi guys, my name is Shashi Mohan, like Linnea mentioned, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Local Management. So in this capacity, working with a lot of different other challenges, the healthcare providers is one of the vertical I support very closely. I work with the urgent care physicians or the specialty doctors, MDs, dentists, just kind of working with them, helping them with the digital marketing strategies, making it sure that they are aligned and whatever is needed from digital marketing perspective, I help them out there. And then along with that, I mean, I have a great background in the healthcare side also. I worked with some of the big providers like Blue Cross Blue Shield, and I also worked with state of Michigan with their healthcare related initiatives. So a lot of background in the technology side and also in the digital marketing side, which I bring into the table and try to help our clients.
Great, thank you, Shashi. So for today's agenda, we're going to cover a few topics, including telehealth, telemedicine, and its impact on the healthcare industry, along with how technology can be leveraged to improve the patient marketing communication process. And then we're going to go into some digital marketing tips and techniques that can be used to grow your healthcare practice or business. So we want this to be as interactive as possible. So please don't hesitate to drop your question in the Q&A, and we'll try to get to everyone's questions. So to start, we want to talk about the impact of telehealth and how the landscape of business has changed. Before we go to our panel, I'll open the first poll regarding telehealth's impact. So let me just open that quickly. Please take a moment to answer the poll. And as you can see, telehealth has positively impacted care quality, given patients improved access, convenience, a stronger base care, and accessibility. It's also a cost saver for quite a few healthcare providers. Simon, do you think you can kick us off by first defining telemedicine versus telehealth, and then also discussing how your services have become more needed as people start to adopt technology, telemedicine more and more, especially now with COVID?
I have to unmute myself.
No worries.
Yeah, sure. So for me, the definition of telehealth versus telemedicine, I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter so much how you define it. It's just how it fits best into your workflow. And when I think about telehealth, a lot of people always think it's video calls. That's how they define telehealth. But as we move into this new day and age, how practices operate and healthcare is being delivered to patients, telehealth is actually, it's much wider than just video calls, right? And it starts from digitizing the entire patient journey. And what I mean by that is that, it's not just that you want to enable your patients to communicate with you via video calls and have like do like a telehealth visit or a video call visit or telemedicine visit, or however you want to call it. But it really starts by digitizing the entire patient experience and leave it up to the care plan or what the patient needs, or leave it up to be honest, the provider to decide at which point in time do they want to do a video call or not. So when we think about telehealth, we think, it's basically means digitizing the entire patient journey. So it starts with scheduling the appointment. That needs to be possible to do that online. Then doing all the patient intake digital. Then also basically sending the patient pre-information before they do the appointment, reminding the patient via text messaging, for example. And then if there's a video visit, great. But if there's no video visit, then you still want to offer the patient kind of that digital experience, so that the patient, doesn't have to go through the humps of a long phone tree or any other more difficult ways to basically, deliver the information to the practice. And then it also continues like after the visit. If the patient didn't show up, you really want to make sure that you try to re-engage the patient. That is obviously also important. Once you spend a lot of marketing dollars to get the patient, then the schedules, then you get the patient scheduled, then you block the schedule, and then the patient doesn't show up, then losing that patient is very costly. So you want to also make sure that you re-engage them in a digital way, be it via text messaging or another digital method. Mm-hmm. And then after the visit has taken place, you want to follow up with the patient. You want to ask them for feedback. You want to ask them for, reviews. And then you also want to make sure that you have like a continuous follow-up process launched, which basically can be seen as, if the patient came in for a checkup, please make sure that you follow up with the patient 3 days after the checkup, or you want to follow up with the patient after they had an operation. So you want to check up with the patient after 3 days, a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. So you want to have these automated follow-up cadences put in place, so that again, you basically digitize the entire patient experience. So coming back to your original question, telehealth is much more than just video calls. Video calls is just a feature. It's a commodity. Everybody needs to have it, but it's not the entire patient experience is based on a video call. It's much more than that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Shashi, with your experience in technology and what Simon just, the insight he just provided, and the overall impact that COVID has made, how important do you think this access and not just the video call, but just overall improved access and convenience, efficiency? How important do you think that is to healthcare and the healthcare industry?
Definitely. I think telehealth is almost becoming like a norm now in the healthcare side, where the patient and the healthcare provider, this is the only platform through which they are connecting with us. So I'm not sure if this is going to be temporary during the pandemic, or it's going to be something we're going to be using more often going forward. But one thing I will add here is like Simon just mentioned, that we shouldn't just be thinking that telehealth is just a video conferencing. So my experience working with a lot of healthcare providers, who are our current clients, what they came up with was initially when this pandemic happened, they jumped onto any platform. They jumped onto the Zoom or any other whatever was available to continue this practice through telehealth. And the challenges which they are facing now is the same thing which Simon mentioned, that just the organization of the data, the organization of the integration of all these different activities which are happening, the scheduling, and once the client has visited, the patient has visited, what's next step. So all that definitely needs to be taken care of, and it's important that we or these healthcare providers needs to start thinking about a highly organized system. Like Klara is one of them, which we are partnered with, and we do understand the details and the inside depth of this of their platform.
Mhm.
So I think that's where a lot of healthcare providers started with the telehealth, with some basic video conferencing kind of tools. But now they are coming back to the table to kind of reinvent that, or look into a more sophisticated platforms like Klara to see how we can take this journey forward, how we can make it more easier, so that we can kind of
And please.
consistently do it in a better fashion.
Yeah, and I think you make a great point about people, they can't just have any technology. You can't just rush into technology. You need to find the right solution for your practice or your healthcare business. And that being said, let me launch the first poll's results. So the poll asked, has your practice or business adopted telehealth, telemedicine, or other forms of healthcare related technology? And interestingly enough, there was 20% that say yes, 20% that say in the process, and then we have 60% that say no. So hopefully today the no's will see the benefits of using a platform to communicate with patient communication, patient marketing, and telehealth. Great. All right, moving forward. So now that we've covered so now that we've covered positive impact, sorry about that little technology glitch on my end, let's talk about concerns and overcoming them. So some themes are reimbursement and integration, marketing and service awareness, letting people know or patients know that telemedicine, telehealth is being offered, along with HIPAA concerns, and of course, patients' lack of technical skill and not being comfortable with the platform. Simon, we'll talk a little bit more about ease of use in a few slides, but if you could start the discussion and touch on these concerns, especially integration and privacy. I know that that's something that Klara has paid a lot of attention to and understands the importance of.
Yeah, sure. So we hear a lot about these concerns. I think on the reimbursement side, I think that was more of a concern pre-pandemic. It kind of lifted a little bit, but the regulation is changing quite a bit. But we don't hear this as such a big pushback when people talk to us. But having said this, like we don't predominantly offer video calls. It's just a feature within our product. Most of the people who engage with us, they want to digitize their patient experience, or they have a lot of phone calls that they want to take care of, and they know in order to take care of these phone calls, this extremely high call volume, they need a tool like a better communication platform like Klara is. But I do think this is in order to, make sure that telemedicine video calls or store and forward telemedicine, basically sending a picture back and forth and answering a couple of questions. The number one priority why this is gets widely adopted or not widely adopted from the physicians is reimbursement. Like if physicians are not incentivized to to offer telemedicine to their patients, they will call them in. because it pays their bills on a better basis, and that's completely understandable. So it is about regulation. It is about that the states and the government makes a bigger move forward, and also mandates that there is price parity between like a physical visit and a telemedicine visit. If that's taken care of, then I think we make a big leap forward. And one of the examples that I want to use in this regard is, for example, during the pandemic, that's where people said, hey, or the insurances said, or the government mandated that insurance reimburse a telemedicine visit just as like a in-person visit. And that obviously had a huge impact on the number of visits that we were, like video calls that we were seeing on the platform. So it has a big effect. I would jump to the point of integration, but if there are questions on reimbursement, happy to talk about this a little bit more. I'm not an expert in reimbursement, but happy to dive in deeper. I guess I'm going to jump to integration and EHRs. I think without EHR integration, it's extremely difficult to basically make a platform work, especially for bigger practices. So if you, for example, if you're a smaller practice, I think not having an integration is okay. And also, if you speak about integration, this can mean different things. It can mean that both systems, that you write back into the EHR or that you receive information from the EHR. And so if that is like a concern for a practice, I totally understand it. And for us, or for good technology, integration is also important, because when you speak about automation, you kind of need the necessary data out of the EHR or the PM system in order to automate certain communication workflows. So for example, if you have appointment reminders, right, the most simple and straightforward way of automatically communicating with your patients, then you need to know where the when the appointment date is and what the appointment is about, in order to kind of remind the patient of the appointment. So integration is extremely possible. I think it's less important if for smaller practices, where automation doesn't play such a central role. I think then integration doesn't matter too much, but it really depends on the solution. It definitely makes the life and the time, life easier for the staff, and it also is less error prone, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, you make some great points and great overall insight. The providers, the healthcare providers, and also local management clients that we've kind of spoken to about Klara and how they're doing their patient communication. The one thing that the providers kept reiterating is integration. Does it integrate with X, Y, and Z? So I think that's super important as well. And I know that Klara takes that, and that Klara understands that and thinks that that's also important as well. So I definitely wanted you to touch on that as well. Great.
Yeah, and if you like just the last two bullets, like patients' lack of technical skills and the unable to work with the platform, I think this really depends on how you basically engage with the patient. So we worked on this for 2 years before we actually rolled out our platform, to the broader market. And before we added on more and more technology, we just tried to get the engagement of the patient super high. And the way we did this is basically we made it as simple as text messaging. Mm-hmm. So for example, we saw when we first built our product that, there's a need to communicate, but if you have too many steps for a patient to do in order before they can actually send a message, that will reduce the adoption on the patient side massively. So that's why we, for example, we send the patient a text message, they click on the link, they don't have to download anything, they don't have to define a password or a login. They basically verify themselves based on their email, their date of birth, and their name. And that's how we can verify and authenticate them much secure, actually, than as if they have to define a password and a login email, etc. We basically use the same approach as many as the banking industry, right? And the other thing that we often hear about is that elderly patients or the older patient population is less prone to using technology. I think I always urge providers and our customers to open up their mind, because there is certain there's less less of the elderly people are using technology, but there's like huge percentages, like 70% of the people older than 65 are texting with their family and friends. Right. So we are using that same kind of approach. Like if they can text with their family and friends, they will also text with businesses, or in this case, a practice or a provider. And that's the really important thing here. And then speaking about the HIPAA concerns, I think this is really important. I think there's a lot of technology out there that is not compliant to HIPAA. They are just making, patients text with themselves, just using very, very much text messaging. So you just really send a text message, and there's no security of the information that the patients deliver to the practice. And so it's really important that security doesn't mean that you make the patients opt out of their security rights. Security is really making sure that they take security very, very seriously. And that's, you see this, HIPAA is real. Like HIPAA breaches are very real. And it is about the provider and their staff to make sure that they take security very, very seriously. Here at Klara, we take security out very, very seriously, and we even sacrifice a little bit of the usability and the ease of use for that. Having said this, we still have an adoption rate of 85% while being super secure, so we are good on that end.
Yeah, as with myself and the background in the technology and SaaS space, I definitely understand the emphasis on security. We service a platform that I was a part of creating and selling service boards of directors. So, the average age was also around the 60 plus age group. So while we really paid attention to ease of use and their ability to use the platform, we definitely emphasize security because it was, boards of directors for companies, private, public. So great insight, great stuff. Thank you. So, and just to piggyback off of what you said, you're talking about the data being secure and paying attention to HIPAA. Next up, we have embracing change and just overall willingness of employees to adopt technology in the workplace. It's super important, especially in 2020, to understand just how big the digital transformation is and how data is more or less secure in the cloud, or it's stored, whether you're using Azure, Microsoft, whatever security that your platform is using. And also just being digital has a positive impact on corporate social responsibility, the environment, and arguably it can be more effective and efficient than a closet full of patient intake folders, right? So, or forms. And this topic, again, like I just said, it really piggybacks off of the last slide. And Simon, I'm sure you've heard a number of objections to change from potential clients as you've pitched them and spoken to them. What are some things that you've heard about the reluctance to change, and how did you overcome them, just to piggyback off of what you said on the last slide?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest thing is that you don't want your staff to be interrupted, right, in the daily workflow, because that's costing you a lot of money on the practice side, and also costs a lot of the owners or the doctor owners of the practices a lot of headache that they have to make their staff adopt a new software. So it really there is a transition cost and there's a learning cost. And so we oftentimes also see kind of a pushback there in terms of embracing change. Yet at the same time, what is really important is that you kind of take this head first. You need to understand that this is real, like especially for a smaller business or a smaller practice. If you take one person that needs to learn a new process, it might have a huge effect on the entire operations of the practice, right? So they cannot answer the phone so fast anymore. They cannot attend the patients when they're seeing them. They still have to, do all the other work when like all the other documentation work or administrative work that makes the practice run smoothly. But I think how we approached it is we try to minimize the impact on the workflow within the practice. So number one is we try to, like, at the end of the day, Klara is texting, right? It's not something that you need to teach people. You need to have them walk through every single feature because they know how to text, most of the people. And so that is really important, that you make the adoption of the software very similar to something that they already do in their everyday life. So texting is one example. There's other examples too, how to make this happen. The other thing is, I think what is key is to, allow themselves to figure out what works for them. What is the next step they need to do in when adopting your technology. So we don't go to a practice and just, you have to do all those things. You have to digitize your entire patient journey. What we say is, like, let's start with that step first. That is the most important thing. So for example, let's say they get overwhelmed with phone calls regarding refills. So let's take exactly that situation and take this workflow and try to digitize this one first, so they don't have to feel overwhelmed and restructure their whole process. I think that's one thing. The other thing is, like, healthcare is in general the last one to embrace change. It's like an industry that follows. It's not a pioneer in the industry. So it's just more difficult for you as a company, and you need to have a very good customer success and customer support team that understands the workflows of your customers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head in the beginning when you said that you don't want to interrupt their work, right? You want to present them with a platform, with technology that can help them. You also have to convince them, right? So the embracing of change, you have to convince them that it will help them. And if they just, went a little bit outside their comfort zone, learn something new, that it's going to make their processes more efficient and effective. And that said, Shashi, what are your thoughts regarding technology and making it more, leveraging it in the healthcare space and that allowing it to be more efficient and effective?
Sure. So I personally think that every organization's vision on the future of using telehealth or any of these platforms is going to be different. I think it all depends upon the healthcare provider or the organization, that how quickly they adopt these changes to reposition themselves in this market and in this structure, so that they have all the advanced technology available to them, and which they can, so that they can serve their patients. So it's going to be kind of a time sensitive also, that where they need to adopt these new the digital arena which is coming up. I mean, we are just learning this one during this pandemic, that how crucial this has become suddenly, that we need to be adopting digital technology, the telehealth and everything. So I think these are all going to make a difference for the service providers, how they adopt it. And then also eventually it is going to be the efficiency, the cost savings, which they are going to be able to get out of these platforms. And also it's going to help them to provide a patient care, because all these new technologies which we are adopting, they help in the efficiencies, they help in the cost reductions. But at the same time, just through this technology, we are also making it sure, if the service provider is fully digitized and they have the digital technology adoption, they will be providing the accessibility of medical information to their clients very easily. They will be able to provide a lot of other information to them, which is not easily accessible. And then also from the digital side, I mean, if they want to really do a brand building for themselves, they can advertise themselves on the social media channels. So it's going to be something which I would suggest that every healthcare provider should be looking into and then adopting them as quickly as possible. They can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And that said, we're gonna move into ease of use as I promised before that we would talk about. And I know that Simon, you've talked a lot about how easy, you guys have tried to make Klara. It's text messaging, right? So that's kind of the main focus of it. But if you want to maybe elaborate a little bit more about how the process that you put in place to make it easy to use, maybe demos you do, what kind of training that do you provide, to make sure that your clients can use it on the provider side, the employee side, and also that the patients are able to use it.
Yeah, and that's a really important point. So, just as why do we think this is so important? Why did I say like previously we spent 2 years just focusing on making it user friendly while keeping it secure, right? That was always the task, and it's still one of our top priorities. So the way we do it, we basically want to do it in two ways how we design our platform. Number one is we want to make it really easy to access Klara. And we also want it to be, once you access Klara, that it's super easy to use. I spoke about number two already, like with text message, it's all text messaging at the end of the day. So it's, everybody can do it, like from the very, very young child to the elderly senior. They all know how to use text messaging. And this is kind of for us the threshold. If that is like too much for you, then maybe Klara, or in general any technological product is more difficult for you to maneuver, and then you should probably not use it. For these cases, though, we also took care of them, because we have employed the guardian and dependent kind of functionality within Klara. So I, for example, can take care of my parents, so that I take care of their healthcare, and it is most of the times that it's actually the daughter. It's not so much the son, unfortunately. I wish we would be better at that. But basically, we then the children take care of the elderly, but before that, it's our parents that take care of us when we are like minors, right? And so we also included that kind of functionality in the product to not forget these two age groups. So I spoke about like making it also easily accessible, like my first point. The ease of access is really important in healthcare, because all the functionality is very nice, but if nobody knows how to access it and you put it into the staff hands and say like, can you please inform all of your patients that this is now available? It's not going to drive and yield the results that you want to have, and people will just keep on calling you, or will call you and say like, I cannot log in, can you send me my password, can you resend this, etc. So what we did, for example, and I bucket this all under patient access, we went about this in 3 ways. Number one is we give practices a textable number so that they can put it on their business cards, or they can put it in their office and say, here's our number that you can just text, or they can even promote it on social media. And with that, the patients just text that number, then this gets triaged to the right person or the right group of people in the practice, and they just message back. Super easy. I don't have to define a password, right? It's like really seamless from a text message to there. The second thing is we put a web messenger on a practice website. So really, like, it from these, from American Express does it, Apple does it, everybody does it. So we bring that kind of same experience so that once you're on the website, you can just simply start texting with the practice. And the third thing is we integrate actually or connect with your phone lines, which is super easy. So for example, we transcribe voicemails. Once the patient leaves the voicemail, they get a text message back saying, hey, sorry, we missed your call. For a faster response, text us here, which is also very easy and picks them up when they actually want to communicate with the practice. And the last part is the we call it the phone greeting. And the phone greeting does the following. When you call a practice and says, it usually asks you, press 1 to do this, press 2 to do this, press 3 to do something else. We allow practices to basically say in the beginning of the phone tree, hey, if you don't want to wait on hold and prefer texting with us, please press 1. Then you press 1. I'm one of the people who doesn't want to wait on hold, and a lot of people don't like that too.
Yeah.
So then you press 1, it hangs up the phone, you get a text message right after, and you start communicating with the practice. So 2 main elements: making patient access super simple. Don't put it into the hands of the practice because they got already too much to do. And the second thing is, once then you gave them the access, that is actually super easy to use. You don't have to download anything. You don't have to define passwords and usernames and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've talked about it so much, but it's so important, especially with technology, just the ease of use in general. That's just always a top of mind, high priority item when people are looking for different solutions to help to make their business, their practice run more efficiently and just overall helpful to their work. So
Yeah, and in any practice or in any situations, people should always ask for patient adoption, because that is number one indicator of if this is actually usable by the patients. Because if it's not, then the patients will not use it. You will not solve the problem that you were trying to solve initially, and then it becomes more just an additional cost on your P&L statement.
Yeah, absolutely. So that said, next up is patient communication and how much easier it is to communicate digitally. We've talked about Klara's capabilities, but how platforms like Klara, make that easy to communicate. The next 3 slides are Klara specific slides. So I'd love for Simon to kind of talk about first poor patient communication, and then positive, and then just recap briefly with how Klara does that to help emphasize and improve patient communication. So I'll be launching the next poll as Simon dives into patient communication. So please take a moment to answer that. Simon, the floor is yours.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, so basically, we see healthcare as a service. One part of the service is the procedure and the surgery, which is the really important stuff that the doctors and the healthcare providers do. And the other part is all communication and customer service. And if you think about but quality of care is both. It's the procedure and the surgery, but it's also the communication and the service element. So if, for example, a patient doesn't get back fast enough, or doesn't hear back fast enough from the practice, or doesn't hear back from the practice at all, it affects the quality of care that they are receiving. And if you then ask patients, what do you think is not working well when they receive healthcare, or when a healthcare service is performed with them, it's all about communication and service. So 96% of all patient complaints have nothing to do with the actual care. They're all about patient communication and service. So that's number one thing. And the big problem here is it's the phone. The phone is causing most of the issues because, for the practices, it's phone tagging. For the patient, it's waiting on hold, being stuck in a phone tree, never hearing back from the practice, etc. Which is, you can blame practices for it, but they don't have any other option because they just have the phone. And sometimes they're just grinding through phone calls, like I said, phone tagging, and they waste up to 3 hours per day just playing phone tag with patients. It's also frustrating for them. They want to reach the patient, but they can't because they just have the phone to do so. And the patient portal, unfortunately, doesn't work because the patient adoption is so low that patients don't receive that message. So, staff waste time, up to 3 hours per staff member per day, but also that patients are getting upset, right? Because not only they leave the practice because they're not hearing back from the practice, or they drop phone calls. There's practices speak about a call abandonment rate, which basically means that the patients hang up the phone if they wait for more than 60 seconds. There's like a stat that says 60% of the patients hang up the phone after they have to wait on hold for 60 seconds. So that's very costly if you think about that, maybe that you paid a lot of marketing dollars to actually acquire that patient. And not only do they leave the practice, like it says, here's almost 70% of the patients leave the practice due to, a loss of communication or a lack of follow-up communication, which is huge. And they don't only leave the practice, they also then go online and, verbalize their frustration and leave negative reviews, which hurts new patient acquisition. So if you go to the next slide,
Sorry.
Then the positive side of this is if you fix patient communication, it actually saves your staff time, it increases patient satisfaction, and it also helps your practice grow because number one, you make sure that you don't lose patients, so it increases patient retention. And number two is because patients are happier, they also don't leave more positive reviews if you ask them. And that also influences patient growth because word of mouth is, we know it. If I go if I need to go to a restaurant and the first thing that I do is just look on the online reviews, even if I order, then I also look at the reviews. Or if I go on Amazon and I want to buy something, look at the vendor, and I also look at the product if that's actually good. And I trust the reviews more than everything. And if I see a couple of bad ones, I'm going to go to the next product or I'm going to go to the next vendor. And that's the reality for practices too, unfortunately. So it is about making sure that you take care of your online presence and not just having a beautiful website, but also making sure when the customer or the patient then does the research that you have enough positive reviews to back that up.
Yeah, absolutely. You make some great points, and we're actually going to talk about online reviews a little bit later when we go into digital marketing aspect of this webinar. But I mean, I saw a stat the other day. It was 84% of people trust online reviews and kind of view it as a personal recommendation, as it's online, but they view it as someone, your neighbor, your friend told you the positive experience. So that's super important to reiterate, and great that you mentioned that. And that said, I do want to just quickly launch or share the results of this poll. So the question was, are you looking for new ways to make your patient communication and marketing process easier? And we were kind of split here with yes and haven't really thought about it, but interested in learning more. So it's good to see that half of our viewers are definitely interested, and the other half are at least interested in learning more, but they haven't thought about it beforehand. Great. So now we're going to move just very quickly into Klara's capabilities. If you kind of want to wrap up, Simon, just everything that Klara is and how Klara can benefit a healthcare provider or healthcare business.
Yeah, sure. So I don't want to pitch too much, but we're an end-to-end patient communication platform.
Yeah.
It's basically the advantage from our perspective is we cover the entire patient journey. So you don't need 10 different point solutions like a video call solution and an appointment reminder solution and like voicemail transcription service. It's all like baked into one holistic end-to-end communication platform. That's number one, why we are, why providers go for us. It also helps with staff adoption because, you don't want them to change every time to a new system. And, that also creates a lot of friction in the process. The other thing is it's all messaging based, to be honest, right? Like at the end of the day, this functionality exists already, but the reason why we are so successful, we know that this functionality is needed in the market, but we just have such a high adoption rate on the patient side because it's messaging and it's all in one thread. So it's basically as if you're texting with your friends from the patient's perspective, And then suddenly you get also an appointment reminder in the same thread. So it's all like in one easy to use patient thread, and there's no need to go into different solutions. And for the practice, it's the same thing. It's all in one thread. And even from a practice perspective, I can even internally communicate about the patient that the patient doesn't see. And then on top of that, when we built all of this, that end-to-end platform, we also realized that there's a lot of repetitive work happening. And so we started like building automation on top of that. First, it was just, giving the practices the ability to use templates. Then we also launched that, we did automated read reminders to the patient. So if a patient doesn't read the message in the first, with the first text message, we sent them a read reminder over 3 consecutive days, which is kind of like a callback, which the practice doesn't have to do anymore. And then now we went as far as, we launched a Klara assistant that basically, as you see below, automates the entire patient journey from online scheduling to insurance card collection, to appointment reminders, to automated patient triaging of the patient request to the right person in the office, to sending them instructions before the visit and making them fill out any paper forms or e-forms online, right? And this happens all automatically with no staff like actually having to do something. Then obviously if the patient doesn't show, automatically trying to re-engage that patient that you and fill that slot again in your appointment schedule. Then obviously the video visit is just a part of the functionality. And then once the visit has been done, if it's a video call or an in-person visit, it doesn't really matter for us at Klara, because we see it all in continuous journey. And if it's a video visit, we support it, because you still need to schedule that visit, or if it's an in-person visit, you still need to schedule that visit, send an appointment reminder, do the patient intake. It doesn't matter. And even also for after the visit, you need to ask the patient, if they liked it, ask them for, if they want to review the practice, obviously, and then also ask for, do the entire referral management, being able to communicate with other providers, with pharmacies, all on one platform, which is Klara, and then also doing the entire follow-up process, which can be automated on Klara. So end to end, it's like the end-to-end patient communication platform that streamlines, digitizes, and automates the communication along the entire patient journey.
Yeah, I was going to say, definitely it streamlines the process. And that's something that I've noticed as I've learned more and more about Klara. Perfect. So a good segue into this topic, patient marketing, and also digital marketing as a whole. We are running a little bit close to the end of the hour, so I'm going to go through as quickly as I can, so we touch on everything. But I just want to first kind of let Simon talk a little bit about the patient marketing. I know that you mentioned online reviews, but maybe you can just explain the experience that Klara, or really the capabilities that Klara provides on the marketing side, just to kick us off.
Yeah, sure. So we basically dock on when practices engage with a marketing platform. So what we do really well is, once the patient tries to get in touch with you, we help you convert that patient much better. Right. That's for example, I was speaking about, the web messenger before. And nowadays, people don't want to fill out forms when they go on your website. They just don't. It's just like, we want to have a very engaging experience when we engage with brands, companies, whatever. And the same thing is true when we engage with the practices. So what we did was basically gave every brick and mortar practice the ability to give the patient the same kind of experience, with enabling them to have a web messenger on their website. And the real ROI is that a web messenger converts 40% better than a web form, right? So that is obviously extremely important when you think about how do we help practices from a marketing perspective. So it basically means, when you spend a lot of marketing dollars to drive more leads or patients to your practice site, then we help convert these patients in a much better way. That's number one. Number two is also when, you know, let's say that you have a big marketing campaign and then suddenly patients all call you, your phone lines get jammed up, right? And if your phone lines get jammed up, then you need something that acts like a buffer. So that's why we created the phone greeting that I was speaking before. So it says, you know, if you don't want to wait on hold and prefer texting with us, press 1. So basically it avoids dropped phone calls, and it increases conversion rates from phone calls into actually, you know, feed into the practice. So that's what we help with. And then there's obviously the extremely important part about like appointment reminders and no-show engagement, where you make sure that these appointments that are scheduled, that they actually hold. And if they didn't hold, that you try to re-engage them in order to make sure that the patient actually shows up. The other part then is, which I think is extremely important to know too, is once you had a patient, and you want to make sure that these patients have a really extremely good patient experience, because it's 8 to 10 times more expensive to acquire new patients versus retaining an existing one. I'm sure, Shashi, you have a similar experience here. And this is also something that I always want to put in front of the doctors, because it is important to do marketing. It is important to acquire new customers. We do that too. But if you have a leaky bucket and you acquire customers that then don't come back, then your unit economics for your practice don't really make sense in the long term. You want to have patients, and you want to have patients that come again and again and again. And that's why having a really good patient experience is extremely crucial, also when you think about your marketing expenses.
Absolutely. We can talk all day about marketing and the benefits of not only the marketing and the brand awareness, but also the client experience and online reviews and the importance of that. But that brings us to the digital marketing part of the webinar. And we were going to talk about using it to attract more patients, retain those patients again, and positively impact your practice. And I'm going to launch the last poll right now. So please take a moment to answer. It's about digital marketing. And that said, you know, we're going to discuss a few tips and techniques, starting with SEO, website design and performance, social media marketing, content marketing, pay-per-click, so PPC, and online brand reputation. And I do want to mention that all the live attendees today will be getting access to our free ebook at the end of this webinar. So thank you again for attending, and we hope you enjoy that ebook. So we're going to start with SEO, and then I'll read the poll results. But this first topic on digital marketing is, again, search engine optimization. It's the process of being ranked on search engines like Google, Yahoo, and Bing. And as you can see here, these numbers, especially the fact that the 67.6, so almost 68% of clicks on sites like Google go to the 1 in 5 spot. It really speaks volumes to me and resonates with me, and it really pinpoints how important it is to pay attention and invest in SEO. Shashi, I'd like to start with you. Can you please talk a little bit about SEO and the importance of keywords and really understanding that in the healthcare space?
Sure. So from my personal experience working with all the healthcare providers and other verticals, from the digital marketing perspective, I definitely suggest that a web presence right now is absolutely needed. And not only right now, but I would say every business should have a representation online through their website. So once you have a good website, it's important that you're also ranking on Google. Like the slide already showing that 75% of the searches are done on Google. So if your search engine optimization is not done the way it should be done, with all the optimization and other techniques are not used, then you're not going to be ranking anywhere on Google, and you will not be able to show or show up on the first or second page of Google. Along with that, the keywords itself have a big importance, because I mean, during pandemic, a lot of people are searching with a lot of interesting topics, and they are also looking for a lot of information online. So when they're searching for those with those keywords, it's important that you have the similar contents on your website. You have some knowledgeable blogs on your website, some contents on your website which are related to those keywords. So it's absolutely important that that you have a well-defined website, which is easy to navigate, and it has good contents on the website, which can be used for searches, and also when the patients are looking for those kind of specialty or any information on that, they will be able to get to your website.
Great points. And I just want to kind of share before we move into the next topic, just the digital marketing poll. So the question was, are you using any form of digital or online marketing to promote your practice or business and attract new clients? I'm happy to report that 70% are, and then 30% are not, but they're interested in learning more. So that's being a marketer, that's really great to see. So that said, as Shashi just mentioned, he talked about website design and that importance, and using on-site SEO in order to boost your ranking and get that 1 to 5 spot on page 1. But that leads us to website performance. This stat, 40% of people leave a website that takes more than 3 seconds to load, I think is a super important one, because impressions about your practice and business in general now start even before potential patients or clients even walk through the door. They start online. So we're going to talk a little bit about online review and reputation management in the next few slides. So I'm going to kind of save it for that, but I just really wanted to pinpoint how important it is to have that good design and performance. Before we move on to the online reviews, social media, and PPC, I also want to shamelessly plug a few tools that the viewers can leverage to help them get started, especially when identifying issues in their website performance, and gaps in the SEO strategy. So tools like these, some free at the top, the HubSpot's website grader, can help to pinpoint what you're already doing well, and more importantly, what you can do better. And if anyone hasn't had a chance to write down these links or are interested in learning about the links more, feel free to reach out after the webinar. Okay, great. So next up is social media marketing. This is social media campaigns, Facebook, Instagram, blogs, and other content creation included, but it can also be in a separate strategy as well. That said, Shashi, can you talk just briefly about how healthcare practices can leverage social media to help them generate leads, build brand awareness, and establish themselves as thought leaders through really good and engaging content?
Sure. We all know right now that there are millions of users right now on social media. So when we have such a big audience on these platforms, why not to kind of send some message out so that we can attract some of them? And this could be a good platform not only for lead generation, but even if you want to do a brand awareness. So we are working with some of the healthcare providers, our current clients. Their target is different. Some of them are kind of working from a brand awareness perspective. So we design a lot of posts for them, a lot of messages for them, some campaigns for them, which are more brand awareness perspective. But some of them are there where they are also focusing on the lead generation side. So these platforms are really helping healthcare providers, especially during this pandemic. We are learning that more and more we are pushing for some special messages out there on social media. They are getting a lot of engagement through that. So these are good platforms, and we highly encourage that all the healthcare providers, they should be doing some sort of marketing, some sort of engagement on social media, and try to utilize that for the best use of either for lead generation or for the brand awareness perspective.
Yeah, I recently saw a quote that in 2020, 3.6 billion users are on social media. So that's, it's a crazy number, and crazy to think that you have such access and such a larger audience that you can reach at a very cost efficient, if not free, way to go about it. And it's such a great tool to use and leverage, especially in a small business. And maybe you have a limited budget. You should definitely take advantage of all the perks that social media brings and can bring for your business. That said, just want to quickly move into pay-per-click, paid ads. Shashi, can you talk a little bit about paid ads and what you've seen results-wise, especially for healthcare providers?
Sure. So from the paid advertisement perspective, we have different channels. Some of our healthcare provider partners are utilizing this service on the Google side from a paid advertisement, and some of them are on the social media side. So it all depends upon your budget and who you want to reach out. But one thing we all know that with the real estate which we have on the Google first pages, it's very competitive. Every provider or every business is trying themselves to show up on the first page. So when all these different dynamics are playing, that how you're going to show up on the first page, sometimes it always becomes important that you have to invest some budget towards this pay-per-click marketing. So our experience working with our healthcare provider is that depending upon if you have some special promotion, or if you are a new business who is actually trying to bring in new patients, or if you have a service which you want to promote, I think it's a good idea to go for this one for a limited amount of time, and then looking on your ROI. It's because there is a some additional budgets involved in these campaigns. We want to make it sure that whatever you're investing on your paid advertisement, you're getting good returns out of that. And we have a mechanism, we have the tools which will very clearly define that whatever you are investing in these campaigns and in these marketing efforts, what kind of returns you're getting. So that's how we are kind of encouraging our clients, and they are doing more and more, and they're getting good results out of that.
Yeah, that's some great insight. I think that super important thing that you mentioned was just paying attention to ROI. I think it's super important when you're doing any kind of paid advertisements to explore different channels, but then also be able to sit back and say, hey, this isn't working, or this is working. Let's do more of this. Let's modify it. I was actually talking to one of local management's clients yesterday. She owns and runs an urgent care center and also a medical marijuana facility. And she mentioned to me that when they tried PPC at the medical marijuana facility, it wasn't working. It really didn't bring the good ROI that they wanted to see. But being open-minded, she wanted to try it at an urgent care when she later purchased or opened an urgent care center, and she's seeing new patients every single day because of PPC. So she really was stressing the importance of saying, okay, maybe it doesn't work in one facility, but you always want to be open to trying new things, kind of pivoting, changing, and modifying your strategy to find the strategy that works for you and your business. And overall, pay-per-click PPC is a great way, a great method to drive leads, especially when you have a good understanding of it. So as to Shashi's point, at local management, we do have the tools. And if you're not interested in internally handling your marketing, you can always look to outsource and get a team of experts, for the cost or less than the cost of a full-time employee on the marketing side. So great point, Shashi. And that said, we've talked quite a bit about online reputations. I know that Simon mentioned just how positive communication can lead to good reviews, 5-star reviews. And I know that I mentioned this stat about 84% of people trust online reviews as much as a personal recommendation. Because honestly, this topic is so important, especially in healthcare, because again, just to reiterate, Simon kind of stole all my talking points, but it's not just about the actual doctor and patient and the doctor curing you, but it's about the experience, the front desk, the overall, the communication, the customer service. Were they satisfied with how they set up the appointment, the follow-up? Were they on hold too long? So that's super important as well. That said, because we are a little bit over time, I just want to talk very quickly about key takeaways. I just want to start with Simon. If there's anything you want to reiterate, or anything that stood out to you and resonated with you during the discussion that you just want to mention as your takeaway.
Sure. Yeah. So I think when you as a provider choose a new vendor that you want to include in your practice or in your operations, then it should always start with what is the need, what is the problem that you're trying to solve. And then as a second step, you should think about like the security of the platform. How is this, protecting the data integrity of your patients? or your organization as a whole, because at the end of the day, we're not selling shoes here. It is about the healthcare data of other people. And the other thing is, I think that is really important, is making sure that whenever you choose technology, especially in this day and age, I mean, healthcare used to be a very antiquated software environment, and that is actually changing rapidly right now. You can get access to really easy to use software. You don't have to put patients and your staff through the same experience that some of the EHRs and PM systems are putting you through. So there is amazing software out there, and it is about looking for these new technologies that actually are more enjoyable to use for you, your staff, and your patients. And then lastly, I think it's important to not choose like so many different technologies. I think you should look for technologies that can cover not just one functionality. It should not just be like e-forms or like video visits or appointment reminders, and for every single platform you have to use a different system, but that should be consolidated. Lastly, the most important thing, all functionality, what I just spoke about, doesn't really matter if the patients are not adopting it. You need to have a high adoption rate on the staff side and on the patient side. Otherwise, everything else fails.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you make a really good point about a streamlined solution. That, from what you said, that one stuck out. Just for me and how I work, I like that the ability to not use so many different platforms to get my work done. And I think from the healthcare standpoint and employees in the office, staff, nurses, it would really make time and their life a lot easier to be able to streamline that process. So great takeaways. And Shashi?
I would say I think the collaboration which we have with Klara is a kind of a one-stop shop for our healthcare provider patient clients. It's a good thing which we have together, and both of these different companies are providing a lot of different services which are currently during this pandemic are actually becoming very, very important and almost needed. There are not many choices left. So I think it's a good collaboration here, and it can help all of them with the digital marketing products. We are an experienced company which are already working with clients, healthcare providers, with their digital marketing strategies, and then Klara coming on board with us from the telehealth and also a kind of an enterprise. All those other functionalities they're bringing together could be a win-win scenario for us, as a team here. Thank you.
Yeah, great point. I think that it's good to have webinars, events like these to kind of bring brand awareness and platform awareness to show what services, what features are offered. So great point. Okay, and that said, I just want to move to the second to last slide. And before we open for any questions, I just want to include this slide that talks a little bit about the key benefits for healthcare providers, really piggybacks off of what we've been saying. But on the local management side, our goal is for our business is to help our clients get found online, to increase lead generation and ultimately increase revenue. And then on Klara's side, Simon, if you want to talk just a little bit very briefly about the benefits, just to wrap up on this last slide.
Sure, I'm going to do it very quickly. So Klara helps reduce time spent on the phone, create a better patient experience, and make more patients come in and come back, and therefore increasing cost efficiency and revenue.
Perfect. And that said, if anyone has any questions, again, if you weren't able to submit them in the Q&A, just feel free to reach out after the fact. I want to thank everyone for joining us today, and also a big thanks to Simon for joining our panel, and to Shashi as well.
Thank you, Ren.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.